Welcome, friend. I'm Jack, host of the channel, and today we're diving into another episode. Pour yourself a drink and get comfortable, because I've got a powerful story coming your way. If something hits deep, drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's get into it.
I tied the knot with a lawyer, so you might think we're living the dream, but that's not exactly true. I met Laura while we were both attending different community colleges to cut down on costs. She was smart, even brilliant, and could hold a conversation about almost anything she had read. However, she was also naive, overly trusting, and not very practical when it came to real-world matters. Tuition at junior colleges is just a fraction of what it costs at four-year institutions, and money was a big concern. My dad is a carpenter with only a high school diploma, and his further education came from the School of Hard Knocks. He always had work but didn't make much money. Naturally, I had to work for him growing up, and I thought I saw all his flaws. He was a bullheaded type, didn't listen well, and got rid of people he thought were too smart for their own good. Unfortunately, he didn't realize he needed smart people, and usually had more jobs going on than he could manage by himself. As a result, it was rare for a job to come in under budget, and his company's growth was limited. I was not going to follow his example. Getting an education was my ticket out. As it turned out, Laura and I met in summer school a couple of months before we both transferred to Ohio State University. I took advantage of a self-directed studies program and enrolled in courses in electrical and civil engineering, chemistry, history, and civics. I took overloads because it didn't cost more, and as long as I got a B or better, I was satisfied with that shotgun approach to courses. I learned to write, think logically, and spot the core of an issue. I knew a lot about areas that interested me and nothing about areas that didn't. Laura was taking pre-law, took a lighter course load, and aimed for all A's, which is good for lawyers. You don't want a lawyer who only knows 70 to 80% of the law. I, on the other hand, looked at college as a trade school for life. I wanted to be the builder my dad never could be. I wanted to know all I needed to know, and a bit more besides. We both graduated with bachelor's degrees together. Laura was fortunate. With no family connections in the legal field and no influential recommendations, a law school in Portland accepted her and gave her a modest scholarship. We moved to Portland and got married that summer. I was free from my dad's iron grip, trading it for her velvet one. Her father, clearly seeing her stellar future and certain of my eventual bankruptcy and failure, impressed upon her the importance of a prenuptial agreement. He also gave us a generous wedding present of a 15% down payment on the house of our choice. The agreement basically said that what she owned and earned was hers personally. If we divorced for any reason, no alimony, no child support, and we kept what we had earned for ourselves. So the wedding gift was really hers alone, as he thought we wouldn't likely buy a house anytime soon. The gift was off in the indefinite future. No one ever accused him of being free with his money. I agreed, but insisted it be the same for both of us. She couldn't get child support, alimony, or my money. I also suggested we not be responsible for each other's debts. She balked at that because she had massive school debts, but I pointed out that if I, a contractor, went belly up and the creditors got through the corporate shield, she could be liable for that debt too. End of argument. Her dad was delighted that his family was protected from my perceived shortcomings. We started our married life with separate credit cards and checking accounts. As the more worldly one, I ended up managing the finances, making money, paying the bills, and signing the checks, hers and mine. I also set up a system to track our income and where it went. She earned very little during school, so the income division was theoretical. Portland was good to me. I found a decent job with a contractor and spent 2 years learning the area and supporting the two of us. Of course, she was racking up what seemed like enormous student loans, all of which she would have to start paying off after graduation. But don't worry. Be happy. Lawyers make big money. I struck out on my own against my wife's advice. My father-in-law called me a fool. I can't really hold it against him, as my dad said the same thing. I'm proud to say I made money from the start. It helped that Laura and I matched each other in the number of hours we devoted to our careers. It was a prodigious effort from both of us. Time spent together was precious, Since I could be more flexible in my hours, I made sure I was around whenever she had time off. It was tough, but we were young, strong, and in love. She timed her pregnancy so she would deliver a month after graduation and hit her target within 2 weeks, a lovely baby girl. Her residency was worse than law school as far as time demands were concerned. She was an underpaid slave at the firm, a handmaiden devoted to the god of litigation. I mispronounced it as a handmaiden to the god of lawsuits and joked that the L was for Lucy, so Lucy Lawsuit became the person causing all the screw-ups and problems in the legal world. Looking back, I'm not sure our marriage really survived her residency. You read about residents hooking up with each other on the night shift. I'm sure she did not because she was so exhausted, day after day. The only difference between being with her and an ice block would have been the temperature. It was a tough, lonely time for me, made bearable by my daughter and a demanding, growing business. Unfortunately, we got used to each other not being around. Her internship, and later her legal practice, easily consumed 55 to 60 hours per week, and the hours were erratic. I continued to take care of our daughter. I kept a planner for both work and home life. It was a job keeping track of all the scheduled stuff for my daughter, my wife, and myself. Daycare was essential, of course. It really bothered me that my daughter was with strangers so much. I moved my office to a storefront I bought cheap across the street from the daycare center. I hired a grandmotherly woman named Mary as my office manager. While I needed her full-time to answer the phone and such, there wasn't enough work to keep her occupied. It was her idea to watch my daughter for the last 3 hours of the workday. My daughter was delighted, and so was I. Freedom Day came for Laura with the end of her internship. We spent a couple of weeks at the beach before she started as a corporate attorney in a small practice in the nearby suburbs. She was eager to buy a house. The banks and mortgage brokers were offering no money down mortgages with no credit check. She showed them her pay stub and picked out a new house. I had little choice, as she pointed out it was her money. She wanted a new McMansion, and I wanted a pre-war house, one built between 1910 and 1950. We got the new, cheaply built box about a 40-minute commute from my office. Her father's wedding present became her end-of-residency present as well. 2 for 1. It amounted to a $30,000 down payment on a house. It was a good chunk of money for him, but his daughter had stars in her eyes and wanted a $750,000 mansion. His contribution just about covered taxes and closing costs, and at 6% interest, the mortgage was $4,500 per month. Plus taxes, heat, upkeep, car, and various insurances boosted the monthly bill to $6,500. Her student loan payments were another $5,000 a month. I tried to get her to lower her sights to a more modest $250,000 to $350,000 house, but, honey, this is what I've been working for all these years. After years of eating beans, you want to spend everything on a house and continue eating beans? That's nuts. We're young, now's the time to enjoy life, not be tied hand and foot to a huge house, I protested, but I lost. Still worse, over the next 3 years, she took out equity loans to furnish it with flashy, poor-quality furniture. It galled me that the fine traditional furniture I inherited from my uncle, all handmade by him, was relegated to my den and a spare bedroom. Going this far into debt was also nuts. I watched debt like a hawk in my business, as undercapitalization can bring you down quicker than anything except stupidity. Business was good. No, it was very good. I was doing well, and I wanted more time with my family, so I decided to move my office closer to my home. Opportunity knocked at my door. I was working on a big project, restoring a roaring 20s-era mansion. I had billed over $350,000 to date, and that was just the structural and exterior work. Unfortunately, the owner went down in the financial crisis and had to sell. I had a mechanic's lien on the house, and he didn't have the money to clear it. He still owed me $120,000, although about $30,000 of that was for materials contracted for but not yet needed. There was a lovely gatehouse and carriage shed on the property, about 10 minutes from my house. It sat more or less by itself on an acre of land that was mostly rocky hillside, but with a nice view. It was connected to the main estate by an unused 20 feet right-of-way that snaked up the hillside. It was easy to cut this property off from the mansion. The buildings looked to be in much worse condition than they were, so I offered to buy it for what he owed me plus $50,000 cash. He jumped for it, and I finished up the work I had in progress and set up a straw company to purchase the property. I converted the carriage shed to offices, but as it was a historical property, I kept the original exterior, including the arched double doors. This also preserved the option of using it in the future as a garage. With my new office habit in place, I began renovating the gatehouse in the months ahead. When a crew had slack time, I put them to work on the house. It was typical of Laura's ability to tune out my business doings. When I showed her the new office, she assumed I was renting it. She was uninterested, didn't ask a single question, not even how much I was paying. She said the place looked old-fashioned and that they should tear it down and build something nice. It was sad that such a big thing in my life would be so uninteresting to her. That was the day I seriously questioned the wisdom of having married her. I thought about ending the marriage. Well, there are ups and downs in all marriages. I made sure I praised her, paid attention to her, and hoped for the best. We had a number of couples we enjoyed, some lawyers, some not, mostly from the comfortably off business or civic leaders, and some nonprofit managers. While not rich, I guess we certainly weren't really middle class. If you didn't know the debt load she carried, you'd think we had it made. As you might expect, some lawyers couldn't see themselves socializing with me, and some engineers and business types couldn't relate to my wife, the lawyer. Gradually, however, Laura's preferences and social activities revolved mostly around members of the legal community. We found a few couples agreeable to us both. I was also beginning to sense a shift in our relationship. More and more, I was the home and family support person. Any change in her schedule, I had to adjust mine and cover for her. It was what I had always done, only more so. I had to drop what I was doing and pick up my daughter because the lawyer was running late. She would agree to do something with me or our daughter, and at the last minute, cancel. I agree, a lawyer is important to lots of people, but we were her family. It was obvious who came first. Mary wasn't complaining, but she was doing more kid care than I thought appropriate. It is the nature of modern life to be interrupted by others. I get calls from job sites and suppliers after hours. I have 2 cell phones, one work, one personal. My wife carries her phone too. Easily, 99% of the after-hours calls I get are settled right then or in a couple of minutes on the phone. For years, other than those times she was on call, the same was true of my wife. But in late spring, it changed. Her phone would go off, and she would have to drop everything and run off to the office. Part of being a lawyer, wouldn't you say? But she was a corporate attorney in a large practice, and they took turns being on call. It certainly seemed she was taking more than her share of turns. One Saturday, in midday, we both spent a hot afternoon doing yard work and outside house maintenance. Dirty and smelly, we showered up before supper. I got turned down for a quickie, but with a promise for a good tumble later that evening. Works for me. We were sitting on the patio after supper, having coffee, listening to the happy calls and shrieks of children at play. This is the life, I thought. About 8, her beeper went off. Laura, in exasperation, looked at it, stood up, and said, "I have to go into the office. I'd better change first." She looked nice, a clean white shirt with a big red cross and the saying, "Give blood for life." Appropriate, huh? White shorts and red high-top sneakers made her look elegantly casual. You just showered and changed into fresh clothes. Why would you change them again when you'll still have to change yet again into office attire when you get there? She looked distracted. "Oh, that's right. Well, I've got to go. I'll be home when I get back." A little after 9, my daughter Emily came in, tired and dirty from heavy play. "You're such a mess. We might as well take you out for ice cream, then a bath for you." Squeals of laughter followed, along with a call to Katie, the best friend of the summer. We had to drive over to the other side of town, no Dairy Queen for us, because only Murphy's Ice Cream Parlor, which served homemade ice cream, would do. A girl after my own heart. I was sitting on a picnic bench out in front of Murphy's, licking a pistachio nut ice cream cone, casually admiring the moms in their summer minimalist outfits, when I saw a truly rare sight. A 1949 Indian motorcycle, chief model, brilliant red with white skirts and shining chrome, rumbled by with a delightful throaty burble of exhaust new cycles can only dream of imitating. I recognized it because my older brother had a die-cast model of one years ago, and I still covet it to this day. The driver was a hefty guy slumped in the seat, in matching jeans and jean jacket with black leather boots. The woman riding pillion, tightly hugging the rider, had on an American flag helmet and face shield, a white Red Cross Give Blood shirt, blue jeans, and shiny red track shoes. The summer evening was cooling now. She'd wished she'd worn a jacket before the evening's done. Acting carefree and happy after that was difficult. I doubt the children noticed my mood as they more than made up for it in laughter and giddiness. I felt ashamed to say that I was glad I had forgotten to mail her quarterly student loan payment on Friday. About 2/3 of that money had come from my funds. It would have been throwing money away. That was also the end of me paying for anything that was hers. Having to pay the full load for her house, car, and stuff would drain her checking account and the savings account attached to it in record time. I kept paying most of her bills, but used her checking account exclusively. Monday morning, I hired a divorce lawyer. He promised to look over the prenup agreement, but he knew the lawyer who wrote it and expected it to be tight, adding that anything can be broken. Documentation of the adultery was unnecessary, but it might help as a bargaining chip if there was a child custody issue, though it was an outside chance. Moms almost always get the kid. The second call was to a friend of mine who was into antique autos. Indian Chief motorcycles are both valuable and rare. Joyriding one is nearly a Jay Leno sort of thing. No hesitation from him. It was almost certainly owned by Mr. Albert Kane. I didn't know him but knew the name. A big shot at the firm. Well, that cleared that up. The third call was to an investigator recommended by my insurance agent for my business. Sam Patel was the guy's name, Sam for short. I saw no reason for him to follow my wife. I was sure she was only fooling around with one person, Albert Lawsuit Kane. That might be another story, and I wanted revenge. I told him I wanted the goods on Mr. Kane and gave him what I knew. I expected to have to pay extra for prompt work, but things must have been slow for the guy. He cut me a break and promised to get right on it. I paid $4,000 deposit for the first week to get him started, asking for photos, audio, and video if possible. I also suggested he cover his tracks well, as Kane had the big bucks to be trouble when he realized he was being screwed with. The fourth call was to one of my site managers, telling him to start pulling workmen as we needed to finish the gatehouse at least enough to get an occupancy permit. Other than that, it was a routine day. I tried to keep everything normal. I guessed I needed about 2 to 3 weeks to conveniently turn out the lights on our marriage. That evening during our quiet time, drinking a cup of coffee, Laura announced, "I'll be going to a legal conference in Boston Thursday and Friday night the week after next. It's sponsored by ML, and I need to go." "Where are you staying?" I asked. "One of Boston's best hotels, the Beacon Plaza. God knows what it would cost normally." I pulled out my iPhone and looked it up. "You're kidding. Beacon Hill is in Cambridge, and so is the hotel. It looks okay, but nothing special. Here, look at the picture. $150 a night." "Let me see, there must be some mistake. That's a nothing, not a Crowne Plaza or anything." "Oh, I must have got the hotel wrong. I'll double check. Anyway, I'm sure the date is correct." That night, we had marital sex for the first time in God knows when. I consider it a personal weakness that I initiated it. I had fished out a condom, just like in the old days, and rolled it on just before entry, and she never noticed. The Tuesday before her conference weekend was very eventful. I met with my lawyer to go over the draft of the divorce papers. He suggested we get my business financials undercover, so if the prenup agreements which he thought were airtight were somehow breached, I wouldn't lose so much. He had doubts about the child support part. "No prup," I protested. "It's my child and I want to support her." The lawyer set me straight. "Give all the support you want, but avoid the court mandating anything." My accountant said he needed a few weeks to bury the cash reserve I had in the business. I joked that we contractors usually wanted to pull money out of thin air, not the other way, and told him to get 75% of it hidden in a week. Later in the afternoon, I met with the investigator in person for the first time. He chose a local cafe. Turns out Sam works out of his house, and as he said, it was also better if some people didn't know where to find him. Mr. Smith, this is a first in my very long experience. This was indeed a first, and that is a rare thing. I'm telling you, your Mr. Kane rents a particular motel room always on Mondays and Thursdays, and sometimes Saturdays, same room every time. Now this is the interesting part. Listen to this. Last Saturday, he took this woman into the room, and they stayed there from noon to about 1:30. Here's her picture. I had never seen her in my life, a nice redhead, I thought. Her name is Karen Jackson, and she works for one of those visiting nurse companies. She had such a sticker on her car. I have her personnel information here for you as well. The curtains on the window were tight, so I couldn't get any pictures, but I have the full audio. They came out all lovey-dovey. Here's another picture of him. He went back to the firm. Now here's the big surprise. I couldn't believe it. At 6 p.m. he drove back to the same motel, arriving at 6:15 and went into the same room. At 6:25, this woman drove up and went into his room. Just like the last one, he slid the picture over. Sorry, it was my wife, but you already knew that, didn't you? We have the audio for this meeting as well. Welcome to the world of stamina enhancers. First time I've come across a guy meeting up with two women the same day in the same room. Turns out he does this twice a week or more. I gained access to the room, and as you instructed, set it up for sound and video. Somebody will be in the area recording what goes on when he is inside. Here's a disc with your wife and one other woman who we do not know, as she arrived with Mr. Kane. I thanked him. Sam, if this hits the fan, is there any way this can be traced to you? I'm serious here, possibly serious money looking for the source of these pictures. No, I tell you, they would never find me unless you told them. But I am careful. You'll find none of my fingerprints on those pictures, nor anything in the room. I told him to keep recording until further notice, but forget the outside stuff. Paid another $2,500 in cash and left with a sour taste in my mouth that wasn't from the coffee. The next day, I closed joint credit card accounts, explaining to Laura that it was to get better control of our funds and did the final positioning of funds. Each week I got Sam's set of videos on a CD in the mail. He had 2 cameras and presumably 2 microphones. Of course, I watched all the tapes, but the ones of my wife I examined with care. I obsessively listened to every word, watched closely every gesture. I think it was cathartic for me. The more I watched, the more distant my feelings for her became. Physically, I guess Kane was okay for his age, older than me by a good deal, 15 to 20 years. Clearly never exercised. His tool was much the same as mine, similar amount of body hair. I was glad to see he had about 4 or 5 more inches on his waistline than me. He generally led the sessions with all the women, telling them what he wanted, and they did it with enthusiasm. She complied with eagerness, doing everything he asked of her. No hesitation, happy to experience whatever he wanted. How I wished she would be that way with me. Upon reflection, I realized that perhaps I shared some responsibility for our lousy sex life. When the wife said no, I didn't insist. I let her be the gatekeeper in the bedroom. Now Kane was pushing her and she was happily yielding. Simple, really. We all want to please our partner. Maybe it's more a matter of what my expectations were, and as I could see, they were too low. Work on the gatehouse was coming along nicely. With a week to go, I called the lawyer and learned he was on vacation. I told his assistant that I wanted the papers by next Tuesday, as promised. She assured me I would have them. I was set to file for divorce and move out of her house and her life. Our daughter was at the neighbor's. We were sipping a nice wine on the patio on the evening before her legal conference. I probably shouldn't have bothered, but I did try one last time to preserve our marriage. So, do you think my wife will ever come back? I asked. Huh? What are you talking about? She responded. I'm talking about you. You've been moving away from Emily and me for quite some time now. It's like you're moving out of the family. I just wondered who you found to take our place, and when, or if you're coming back. There was a long silence. I was about to get up and leave when she replied in a quiet voice. He's a lawyer at the firm. I can't tell you his name, but I'm pretty sure we're in love. That is, the real thing. You can't tell right away, can you? Emotions are funny that way. I'll know in a month or so. And no, I won't. I can't give him up. I'm sorry, but there it is. I still love you, but... She trailed off into silence. I said nothing. John, aren't you going to say anything? You haven't finished. You were saying you loved me, but... And I'd like to know how long, how often, and most of all, why. What does he have that I don't? Okay, this is complicated. I love you, or what I always thought was love. With him, it's different. I've been close to him for a month, maybe 6 weeks. There's no why. It just happened. He's not better or worse than you, just different. So, every time your phone goes off, you're either off to help and comfort struggling clients, or Mr. Lawsuit has a hard-on and his confidant needs to take care of it. John, don't be like that. It's not like that. I just have to be sure, and it's only a few more weeks, please. I held her hand with both of mine and cleanly slid her wedding and engagement rings off her finger. I don't think it registered until I took my wedding band off and dropped it in her hand. Hey, give them back. I can't go without them. They're mine, John. People will notice. Give them back. Not my problem. I slipped 2 coins out of my pocket, stood up, and threw them way the hell out into the yard. In the failing light, she could glimpse something shiny flying through the air and assumed it was $15,000 worth of jewelry. So, go find the damn things. If you wanted to keep the marriage they represented, there wouldn't be this problem anyway. You'd probably be surprised how many people know what you've been doing. The two of you are well known about town, so tell them. Tell them all how lucky you were to get onto the big lawyer's well-used tool. Tell them he loves you more than life itself, that he's going to divorce his wife and marry you, just waiting for the right time to tell her. John, cut out the crude talk. How did you know that? I laughed. Beneath all that education, you're a dumb idiot. Every married guy tells his secret buddy he loves her and is going to leave his wife. It keeps her having close relations with him. Women who imagine themselves virtuous pretend it's necessary to reach a long-term commitment. An honest woman does it because it's fun, and she enjoys the ride, and secret lovers do it for money. Anyway, sometimes the guy does divorce his wife, maybe 1 in 5 because the marriage was in trouble anyway. And sometimes he even marries his secret lover of the week. Maybe that's 1 in 5 too. So chances are, 24 out of 25 times he dumps her. But who knows? Maybe it is true love you have, and you'll marry him, and the two of you who merrily engaged in your last marriages will be faithful in your new ones. And in your free time, go down into the office and work on cases together. She went up to her bedroom, slamming doors as she went. What the hell did she think my reaction would be? I put together the reality package I planned to leave for her. It listed the household costs, her net income minus her student loan payments, minus her mortgage payments, minus taxes, minus car payments, minus utilities, minus insurance for car and house. It came out in minus numbers. She was in the hole by $2,000 a week, with no food, gas, or anything else. I timed the bill payment so that on D-Day, all her bills would be paid and leave essentially no cash in her accounts. The next morning, she assured me again it really was a legal conference and headed out the door. I canceled all of our joint credit cards. She had one for business, so she was not completely without a source of funds. I made copies of the bills and our income tax returns. She would need them. I listed the name and number of the oil burner guy, the lawn guy, the snowplowing guy, and a general handyman. Looking over the tax returns, I was pleased that for the last 3 years, despite efforts to reduce and hide my income, I made more than she did. Good. Well, maybe that was too much information for her right now. She was gone, and at this point, I wanted her to stay gone. Why give her a reason to want to stay? I pulled the income tax returns from the pile. She'd get them eventually. The movers arrived at 11 a.m. on Thursday. My shop took 1 truck and most of the movers' time. I took all of my uncle's furniture plus some family pieces, my bureau, and the contents of my closet. I was such a nice guy I had a cleaning service come in to sweep, vacuum, and scrub away all evidence of my life there. I stacked her financial stuff in a box, tossed the current bills on top, and a second box was for miscellaneous junk we found while emptying drawers and cleaning the floors. I set them on a kitchen chair and left the divorce papers I had signed on the kitchen table. I also left a note on the refrigerator and closed the door on a chapter of my life. At 4 p.m. Friday afternoon, my daughter and I went bedroom shopping and got her set up in her bedroom at my place. The newly renovated house was looking great, insulated, new thermal pane windows that looked like the old ones, original plaster work with paint and stenciling restored, original kitchen restored and augmented a bit to suit modern needs, and everything freshly stripped and varnished or painted. What a great job the crews had done. I'd like to think they did a great job out of respect they held for me, or it could be that jobs were really difficult to find right now, and I had quite a payroll. Saturday night, Laura called at 10 p.m. in hysterics. I listened long enough to know she discovered she was bankrupt. I told her, "Hey, don't cry on my shoulder. Not my problem. I don't care anymore. Take your troubles to Mr. Lawsuit. Let him be tender, helpful, and give you money." More shrieks of rage, remorse, and hurt. "Look, you're not coherent. I'll come by tomorrow night at 7 and we can talk this over. Emily is fine. She's with me right now. I figure we'll share custody. We can work around your problem of being on call for emergencies and whatnot. Don't call again between now and 7 p.m. tomorrow." I hung up. The phone rang immediately. It was her. "Look, don't call Emily either. She's been in bed for an hour now, and as hysterical as you are, you'll scare the hell out of her. Be prepared to tell me precisely when, what day, what time you want her to stay with you. I need to know when I see you tomorrow. Good night." Seems she expected me to plod along until she found another confidant she liked better. Apparently, it never occurred to the lawyer that I might make up my mind pretty quickly. You don't appreciate the water until the well runs dry. 7 p.m. came around. Just to piss her off, I got a sandwich at a very good Italian deli, crispy crust artisan bread on the side so it wouldn't get soggy. I showed up late, wearing particularly dirty and sweaty work clothes and boots. I knocked on the door. The grungy clothes were a bit of theater. I'd worked up a good sweat doing landscaping at my new house. She looked nice, in a low-cut blouse with a thin lace bra, a short skirt, and barefoot. She saw the bag in my hand. "Oh, how nice. You brought something for me. I guess we're both sorry. Come on in. I made supper." "You got things wrong. I'm not sorry. I'm delighted I found out what you were before I wasted more years." I looked over at the table. "I brought this for myself. You do as you please." "But I cooked a nice meal for you," she protested. I looked over at the table again. "I was thinking, you didn't cook anything. You picked it out pre-cooked at the grocery. Must have just come from Lawsuit. You never dressed like that for me." But what I said out loud was, "Oh well, let's eat and talk about Emily. That's what we have in common now. I presume you agree with joint custody? And I wonder if you've thought out when you will want her." "I don't want a divorce. This is not my choice. It's just that this might be the real thing with Fred, and I need some time to find out." "You know if it's the real thing, right? You said that before. However, the real thing that is upon you right now is divorce. I do envy your delusional state. New love is really, really great. Although I must say it hasn't done much for your mental acuity. Now don't take this the wrong way. He obviously is something really special. What does he have that is so attractive?" "John, I'm not going there. No way will I compare him with you or vice versa." "No, really, I'm not asking that. I'm asking, what is so attractive about him? Word of honor, I won't go off the deep end. Tell me." "Well, it's really not the close moments. I mean, he's skilled at it, he's good, but not extraordinary, at least in my limited experience. Size-wise, he's ordinary as far as I know. But he has an amazing scent. It's not cologne or anything. It's his body. It has this sublime scent. He has a commanding personality. He's confident and in charge. He's so considerate and kind. He listens intently and comments intelligently on whatever I say. I mean, I just, feel protected. I want to please him. I probably would have done, I did do whatever I thought he wanted, and he seemed to know what I wanted. Not what I said I wanted, but deep down inside what I wanted, and had me do that. What I really wanted but couldn't ask for. Then he's indeed a talented Don Juan. Well, God bless you in your ongoing quest. His bedside manner carries over into your bed. It makes me feel better to have gotten out of your way, and it's good for you too, you know. No more lying, sneaking around. Now you can be open about your love." John, I really didn't want a divorce. That was your idea. For the love of God, it's my fault she's nuts. Anyway, divorce it is, ready or not, here it comes. And lest we forget, caring for our daughter is why we are talking tonight. You know I can't control my schedule. Why are you asking this? Emily has to have some sort of stability in her life. She's not going to go to bed in your house and wake up in mine. She has to know who will get her to soccer practice next Tuesday. She has to know in advance where she will be Saturday, if only so she knows who she can make plans to play with. So if you want scheduled time with her, when will it be? And what are you going to do about Emily when you have her and one of lawsuit's calls comes in? What are you going to do when you're running late? I'm not in a position to answer that now. I mean, this is still new to me. Do we have to do this now? As long as you're happy not having her with you, no, we need never mention it again. Yeah, look, what we do in the next few days or weeks isn't forever. Things change. So for now, I gather you agree reluctantly she stays with me, and you visit as your time permits. You may not drop in for any reason, call first. I need 24 hours notice of any change in plans. I just want you to know that I expect and need you to be her mother. Let's try to be civil to each other, and if we can't, then at least be civil in front of Emily. I don't badmouth you to her, and vice versa. That makes sense, right? Yes, it makes sense. On the rest, I'm between a rock and a hard place. I have to go along with this, at least for now. Well, at least things are going well in my other life, she added quietly. Good. I'm glad to hear it. Hope lawsuit makes you happy. Sorry I couldn't, but then again, I've come to realize it was mutual. I'd rather we had split without the dishonesty, but it happens. At least we both now have the prospect of good companionship. Well, I'm off. John, I didn't file for divorce, you did, right? You keep on about that. You mean you really didn't expect it? You put the cuckold horns on me. You placed the bomb, lit the fuse, wonder why the dirt of divorce is raining down on you and our family. She was successfully fighting back tears. I blew her a kiss and walked out the door, leaving the sandwich wrapper with the aroma of oregano and garlic on the table. Well, good. We all deserve happiness, her as well as me. I did get an amazing change of fortune later in the week. About 6 months earlier, I had submitted a Hail Mary bid to build a new middle school. The job was a good bit larger, make that way larger than anything I had ever done before, and frankly, I thought my bid would be thrown out for that reason. I was high in price, mostly because I didn't really trust my estimate. I added 15% to my actual estimate to cover for blunders and came in a respectable third. My real estimate, the one without the 15%, was right between the top two contractor bids. A few weeks later, that bank in New York, Lehman Brothers, went bust and credit ceased. The high bidder on the school contract was a big, well-respected contractor. A few weeks ago, I had read that he had been indicted for bribing city officials, and the city threw out his bid. This Wednesday, the school department called me in for a conference to see if I could stand by my bid. The number 2 bidder had declared bankruptcy. Poof, here one day, gone the next. Meanwhile, construction costs had dropped about 10% at that point, and I could foresee at least another 10% drop in the coming months, as existing work was finished, but nothing much coming through because of the recession. Normally, they would have thrown out all of the bids and gone out for bid again. Unfortunately, that would have meant months of delay, and possibly the money would be appropriated for other projects or otherwise unavailable. Plus, the city and the school board wanted to show jobs in the city by November. The problem for me was financing, as I had hidden my cash for the divorce. I asked for a week to check the numbers in my bank. I spent 2 days with my estimators checking prices. The 20% drop in costs had already arrived. I went to the local bank I had been dealing with. They were not going along until I explained the pricing drop. My bid price was $60 million. I had figured my cost originally at $53 million. My new cost was close to $48 million. They checked my numbers, and I got the financing. I was good to go. I was in the big time and stood to make over $15 million on this job. Sam the detective called me into the cafe for a conference. He had sound and video on, count them 12 women. My wife and one other were regulars, once or twice a week, and the others sprinkled in. We had to agree Kane was extraordinary. I told Sam to keep it up, if nothing else. They were nice B-grade movies. On Sunday night, I got a panic call from Laura. It seemed she couldn't pay her bills. She didn't understand them. So Emily and I went over. Laura and I sat at the kitchen table, and Emily played with the neighbor kids. John, all these bills, I don't begin to have enough money to pay them. No kidding, Sherlock. It's called being bankrupt. You don't make enough money, not counting the work I used to do around here that you'll now have to hire out. You're about $120,000 a year short. Best thing you can do is talk to a lawyer and file for bankruptcy. Don't make it out worse than it is. I'm a lawyer. I can't be bankrupt. Okay, so pay your bills. Maybe Mr. Lawsuit will pay you for services rendered. He probably gets better servicing from you than I ever. I stopped myself, feeling ashamed. Sorry, really. I generally can suppress my feelings. That is exactly what I should not say. Besides, if he's stuck around you this long, you're doing good in and out of the office. What about money? Change jobs, get a second job, you're a lawyer, somebody will hire you. If I, at a minimum, need another $4,500 per month revenue stream, and a second job's out of the question. Actually, you need closer to $6,000 just to keep the grass mowed, with no cushion, and that's with about nothing for spending money. You forgot taxes, so ask your partners for a raise. I need you to cough up some money. Did you read the prenuptial agreement you and your dad made me sign? I don't owe you anything. Stop paying the mortgage. That's a start. Now you look. If I lose my house, I'll rip you apart in the divorce. You won't have a dime to your name, you idiot. Laura, this is unhelpful. All this squabbling about money. You really have no choice but to see a lawyer, declare bankruptcy, and dump the house. It's worth about $500,000 now. And you have a $600,000 first mortgage on it and nearly another $100,000 second mortgage. If the bank dropped the mortgage by $300,000, or if they foreclosed on the property, that $300,000 would be forgiveness of debt and taxable to you. That's my best advice, but you need to see a lawyer. I won't give you money. I dutifully pay all the bills I am obligated to pay, but nothing more. When our marriage had a chance of a future, I made sure you had enough money to live as you, not me, wanted to. You dumped me. I give money to charity, and that you're not. Oh, and when you howl at how cruel bankruptcy laws are, remember that the money you and your dad gave to your congressman has come back to screw you. They have no mercy for those hopelessly in debt or the poor. And a last bit of advice. Never declare war when the enemy is within. Think that bit about going after me. Thanks to your dad, you can't get me. Don't go there. I think we're done here. Let me call Emily. She was livid. Emily probably risked a burn when she kissed her mom goodbye, and the two of us went home. I got a call from Laura a couple of weeks later. She wanted to talk. Could I leave Emily home and come over for dinner? I told her I would be there at 7 p.m. after supper. I really didn't want to eat at her table. In refusing her so easily, I realized I had only mild affection left for her, and I was getting good at seeing through her manipulations. The anger I felt for what she did to me remained and probably would for years, but the beast was under control. John, thanks for coming over. As you know, I'm in the financial hole. The house is going, but I don't know when. I haven't made any payments on it since you left. Whenever the bank shows up, I'm going to be living in a one-room apartment. I've broken off with him. Ah, the sweet-smelling lawsuit. I take it you figured out you're just a collection of willing hands to the good Mr. Kane? Isn't that the truth? If you knew God, everybody must have known. You know his name? Oh, everybody must. He's been seeing another woman. I loved him and was sure he loved me. Boy, did I fall on my face. At least you landed good side up. What do you want from me? I want my family back. Hey, we've had this conversation before. You said you thought he was your real love, which also meant that I was not your real love. When you expected me to wear the cuckold horns, you proved you didn't really know me. And for that matter, I realized that I didn't know you. I've thought about it a lot, if you can believe it. I realized I disliked you more than I loved you. The two of us together are our past, not our future. That Kane is not your future either. It doesn't change anything between us, so forget about it. John, the other thing I want is revenge on him. I really do. He led me on with a string of lies, and I want him to pay. Forget about revenge as well. Do nothing. You look like an idiot, however it comes out. Lawyers are supposed to be wise, discerning, stable professionals, not love-struck fools who jump into a guy's lap after a good line. And don't look for me to get him in a dark conference room and break his fingers either. Laura, remember the Bible. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. By the way, I forgot some books here. Mind if I look for 'em? Go ahead. They're wherever you left them. I haven't read a thing in months. That's another thing wrong with my life. It's mostly work. I love to read, and I haven't had time for a long time. I got a bag from the kitchen and collected a couple of novels, but it was the law firm anniversary book I was really after. I needed to do some research, and I remembered that they had group photos and names in it. I had a different idea to fry Cain, but there was no point in telling Laura. She would get some of the blowback. When I got home, I went through the law firm book and was able to identify 9 women, 2 lawyers, 5 paralegals, and 2 in administration. That left 3 unknowns. I called Sam Patel and then the lawyer I used for the business. I had figured out that I didn't like being a big contractor, talking to suits all day. I really liked being close to the work, particularly historic restoration projects. I asked my lawyer to ask around for a contractor who wanted to buy a business with a very good 3-year contract, virtually guaranteed to make money. I offered him 10% of the purchase price. As for Sam the Snoop, it cost another $3,000, but he got the goods on the unknowns. We met in a local coffee shop instead of Sam's usual office. Sam, the coffee's better here. Belongs to a client, Sam said. A friend of mine knows one of the office persons and got the name of 2 of them right off the bat. Turns out they were clients of Cain. Plus, 2 of the ones we had names for were also clients of his as well. We made up a fake newspaper story about the 3rd one, doctored her picture so she had clothing on. My contact brought it into the office and got the last name. The last one was both a client and a paralegal in his downtown office. I also looked up addresses and family info. I bought a cheap laptop on Craigslist for cash, and one of my guys got me a stolen credit card in case I needed it. One of the local hotels had unsecured Wi-Fi, so I parked on the curb across the street so I could go online. I didn't have to pay anything, but more importantly, I didn't have to give any identification. I logged into a blog site and set up an account in Cain's name. I then uploaded Cain's Special Team Part 1, the nice paralegal discussions that relieve my stress. I had each one in a portrait with names linked to a 30-second video clip where both the woman and Cain were clearly identifiable. I then set up an email account. I used some software that allowed me to send individual emails to a whole group of people individually. That way no one would know who else got the emails, so it looked like Cain sent Cain's special team to them alone. No way they wouldn't spread this bit of juicy gossip to people I didn't know. I used several email lists so both private and firm addresses were covered. I had struck round 1, a direct hit on Cain. Laura called about half an hour later. My God, John, do you know what that Cain did? He sent me an email showing him with 5 of the paralegals. Cain's special team, he calls them, the paralegals. I know all of them, 3 of them very well. Jesus, John. What guy could have an affair with 5 women? What the hell could you do with that many? It would be a huge waste of glory. Gotta be a fake picture. No, 1 at a time, but all in the same room at different times. My God, he's sick. He filmed it all. How could he do that? Great stamina to do 5 women in a day. No wonder you liked him. Kudos to him. Probably had installed 1 or more video cameras and taped the acts. May have broadcast the whole thing to a receiver in his car. Of course, he also would have broadcast it to anyone else within a few hundred yards around. Anyone could have recorded it. Do you recognize the room? Oh my God, it was the motel room we used, oh my God. Right, he no doubt has pictures of you too. Maybe you are part of Cain's special team, the lawyers. Your 15 minutes of fame might be starting soon. Somebody will kill him, he better not, oh Jesus, what did I do to myself? Send me the link, I'd like to see it. Besides, I need to meet some willing women. Look, I gotta go, you're a pig, John, you're a pig. The next night, the blog was gone. Censorship on the web. I set up another blog and the next day sent out new links to Kane's group of women. Same deal, sent to everybody individually. The rumor mill would be cranking, unstoppable. Like clockwork, half an hour after I had sent it, Laura called in tears. That man, my picture and a video of me discussing with him. Jesus, the phone has been ringing every 5 minutes. I'm gonna kill the creep. Okay, give me the link. Look, don't say that. Somebody else will very likely kill him, saving you the trouble. People will recall your words. Remember, you dumped him well before his present troubles. I just emailed the link to you. Oh my God, what a loser. I clicked on the link. If she had deliberately sent a bad link, and if I let on I knew what was there before I saw the link, the jig would be up. She's not that devious, but you can't be too careful. Yep, there she was. Well, you certainly look good. Maybe a magazine will put you in it. Oh, thanks. Our firm and 2 others have temporarily pulled his privileges, so he's out of work for a while until they decide what to do. So far, the paralegals are being looked at as victims. Now they can add some lawyers to the list, just what I needed. At least the stereotype of a female works in your favor this time. Poor deluded young lawyer throws away her marriage and her reputation all for a cad. All that education, such a waste. Screw you and the horse you rode in on. What am I going to do? No pun intended. Just ride it out. Keep out of the limelight. Don't give interviews or make any public statements. Most of your clients will know nothing. Few to none will see the pictures. Your associations are nice, but half the people in the world have a pair of eyes on their face, and most of the ones that don't have ready access to someone else's. Few people outside of the firm will see them. Nearly all will look casually and not much notice or remember the face. More important, you need to think about what to tell your daughter if she finds out. She started sobbing with that one. I don't know how you handle that. Kane is another matter. This stuff will blow Kane out of town before it blows over, so you can enjoy the revenge you wanted at no cost or risk. When I sent out Kane's pictures and videos, it was public proof he was engaging with some of his clients. It was all over for him. He lost his license to practice law, was buried under a hail of lawsuits, and his wife divorced him. He fled town and reportedly works for an insurance company in Texas, probably figuring out how to deny coverage to the struggling. I wonder if having little status and less money changed his scent. I wrestled with giving myself permission to spend some of the pot of money I was making. My antique car friend assured me it was a good investment, so using him as a straw man, I bought the Indian Chief motorcycle, plus another one Kane had picked up for parts. I've always regarded them as organ donor specials and never ridden one, but it looked like fun. I had the brains to take lessons. I no longer coveted my brother's toy. I had the real thing. I called the Red Cross and asked if they had any more Give Blood shirts. They had none. I explained that I wanted one, size small, new or used, and would give the Red Cross a check for $250 to whoever dug one up. The woman I was talking to said that could be arranged, and we agreed to meet Thursday night and make the buy. She seemed like a nice woman, and I told her what I planned to do with the shirt. We had a good laugh and exchanged email addresses. I took Emily out, and among other clothes she needed, I bought her a pair of red sneakers. I gave her the shirt a couple of days later. We rode on my bike over to Laura's house on the eve of the foreclosure. Emily ran inside wearing the t-shirt and the red sneakers and hollered, "Mommy, look at Dad's motorcycle. We rode over here on it. Have you ever ridden on one as nice as this?" Her eyes widened and she mouthed, "Oh, I did once, looking much like you, in fact. It was a fun ride while it lasted, but it was a big mistake because it ended in a crash, John." Laura actually sued me. Unfortunately for her, the prenuptial agreement held, and she got nothing from me. She lost the house and declared bankruptcy. However, not all debts are forgiven in bankruptcy, so I estimated it will be years of living cheap before she is free and clear. Nice guy that I am. I sent her father a $1,500 check thanking him for his idea of a prenuptial agreement and how it saved me a fortune. He sent the check back with no comment. I sent it to a liberal advocacy group in his name and used his name as the owner. As part of the bankruptcy, Laura had to submit prior year's tax returns. For the first time, she really looked at the documents and saw what my income was the year we were divorced. She was aghast to see it was a lot higher than hers, to say nothing of the huge lump of cash I made from selling my business. She demanded to know why I hadn't told her. I pointed out I did show her. I pointed to her signature on every tax return. The amount of income was right there. It's just that she was so convinced she was the lawyer and I was a glorified handyman. She assumed our income was mostly from her practice. How often we look without seeing. It's just as well you and your dad were really worried I was marrying you for your money. I think you liked the idea of bringing in the big bucks. It gave you power. Look at the bright side. You're young, good-looking, and as I and much of the world have seen, much better in bed now than you ever were when you were with me. I'm sure you'll have your pick of prospective mates. A year later, I got rid of the motorcycle. It was fun, but I wasn't riding it enough to become a skilled rider, and I basically didn't enjoy it all that much. My friend was right, though. It was a good investment. I sold the parts bike for what I paid for the two, and the good bike for double what I had paid for the lot. After selling the motorcycle, I started focusing on my new business ventures. The money I made from selling the old business gave me the freedom to explore new opportunities. I invested in a small but profitable construction firm that specialized in restoring historic homes. It was work that I loved and something that allowed me to stay close to the craft rather than dealing with the suits all day. The work was steady and the profits were good. More importantly, it kept me busy and away from thoughts of Laura. Meanwhile, Laura's situation continued to deteriorate. The foreclosure on the house went through, and she moved into a small one-bedroom apartment in a less desirable part of town. She tried to keep up appearances at the firm, but the rumors about her and Kane had spread, making her the subject of office gossip. She wasn't fired, but she was definitely sidelined. It became clear that she was no longer on the fast track she once believed she was. Emily and I settled into our new routine. She spent most of her time with me, and our relationship grew stronger. I made sure she knew she was my priority, and I did my best to shield her from the turmoil between her mother and me. We had our ups and downs, but overall, she seemed to be adjusting well. Laura tried reaching out a few more times, asking for help, even suggesting we try to reconcile for Emily's sake. But I wasn't having it. I had moved on, and there was no going back. I told her as much during one of our meetings about Emily's schedule. Laura, we're done. There's no going back to what we were. You made your choices, and I've made mine. We need to focus on being the best parents we can be for Emily, but that's it. I'm not interested in anything more. She didn't take it well, but eventually she stopped trying. She knew as well as I did that the damage was done, and there was no repairing it. As the months went by, my business continued to grow. I landed a few high-profile restoration projects, and my reputation in the industry soared. I had found my niche, and it was rewarding in ways I hadn't imagined. I wasn't just making money. I was creating something beautiful, preserving history, and that gave me a sense of purpose. Then one day, out of the blue, I received a letter from Kane. It was a pathetic attempt at an apology, mixed with a plea for me to stop whatever it was I was doing to ruin his life. Apparently, the fallout from the scandal had finally caught up with him. He was struggling to find work, and his personal life was in shambles. His wife had left him, taking their kids with her, and he was facing multiple lawsuits from former clients and associates. I didn't bother responding to the letter. The man had brought this upon himself, and I felt no sympathy for him. He had underestimated me, thinking I was just some gullible husband he could manipulate. He had no idea what I was capable of when pushed to the edge. As far as I was concerned, he was getting exactly what he deserved. Emily continued to thrive. She was doing well in school, making new friends, and getting involved in sports. I made it a point to be there for all her games and events. We took trips together, just the two of us, and those moments became the highlights of my life. She was growing up fast, and I wanted to be there for every step of the way. As for Laura, I heard through the grapevine that she eventually left the law firm. The whispers of her affair with Kane had tarnished her reputation too much, and she couldn't escape it. She took a job in a smaller town, trying to start over, but by then it was clear that her career had peaked, and she would never reach the heights she once aspired to. In the end, I was grateful for the way things turned out. The betrayal that once threatened to destroy me had instead pushed me to find my true calling, and it brought me closer to my daughter than I ever imagined possible. Life wasn't perfect, but it was good. I had learned some hard lessons, but I had come out stronger on the other side. And that's where I left it. No more looking back. My future was in front of me, and I was ready to embrace it with everything I had.
Thanks for hanging out with me on today's episode. Brother, I'm Jack, host of this podcast, and it's great having you here. If today's story hit home, send it on to a buddy who might need it. Remember, we're all in this together, turning life's curvy balls into wins. If you have an opinion or story to share, then drop a line in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out. Until next time, keep your chin up and keep pushing forward. Stay strong, folks.